The world around us is changing so much. I remember, back in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, you can always go back and you can watch old videos of stay at home moms. You can watch these mothers staying at home where the guy worked and they had like a one-story house. And then the mom was always in the kitchen cooking and cleaning. And then the husband, he came home. And then after that, he was giving her a hug while she was either mopping or sweeping and cooking and doing different things around the house. And the era that we live in now has changed so much. The dynamics from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, all the way to where we are today in the year 2024, if you look at it. And I think this really just started to change back in around the 1980s, and really going into really the early 2000s is where you start to see this shift in the fathers staying at home instead of the moms being stay at home. And what I want to talk about today is just stay-at-home fathers. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. Maybe you might want to comment in the comment section and say, these are the things about you that you feel strongly about. These are things that you don't feel strongly about. And this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about just fathers in general and kind of where we are as far as stay-at-home fathers and stuff. Not me personally, but just some stay-at-home fathers out there. And I want to start off with a story about an article that I was reading. It was one of these articles I found online, and I'm going to link this in below if you look in the description box. But the guy by the gentleman of Gerard Goodsman, he was a former tour manager, and he was a tour manager for DMX, which is a rapper, and also Salt and Pepper and Cat Power. These are just different bands that play, and he managed them while they went on tour. And one of the things that you see in this article is that Mr. Goodsman, he was on tour for about 6 months out of the year. Keep in mind, we got 12 months out of a year. So half the time he was on the road. And what he noticed is he had one kid. His wife stayed at home while he was out of town because they lived in Seattle and they were on tour all the time from 6 months to 12. And then you also look to see is that they had another kid right after that. And then by the time he had the third child, him and his wife, they started to crunch the numbers and stuff like that. And Mr. Goodsman, he found out that, maybe it's not worth it for me to go on tour. Maybe it's worth it for me to stay at home instead of paying for childcare. So he spoke to his wife and they had a discussion about it and they were able to come to an agreement. And now Mr. Goodsman, he's a stay-at-home dad and his wife is a doctor. His wife is a doctor and she has her doctorates in industrial system engineering. So he decided to stay at home and she decided to be a doctoral in industrial system engineering. So now he does what he wanted to do, which is stay at home with the kids. He helps out with household duties. He also helps them out with their homework. He takes them to school and he spends a lot more time with his kids than he did before. And sometimes it takes a couple of experiences just for us to realize certain things. Sometimes it may not happen on the first child. Sometimes it doesn't happen on the second child. But by the time that he got around to the third child, he had enough experience and exposure to say, you know what? I'm always on the road for 6 months out of the year. Let's see if we can try something different. And now he's happy with the way things are going because he's able to stay at home with his kids. And that's what kind of leads me into my story too, because I remember just working and working and working. And there was a time when I was married. This is like about 4 years ago when my ex-wife had asked me about being a stay-at-home dad. And I was like, stay-at-home dad? My parents didn't raise me like that. And I wouldn't say I was necessarily against it, but I wasn't necessarily for it. I'd say I was more so in the middle. And for me, I just don't think it's necessarily for me. And this isn't a knock on stay-at-home fathers or anything like that. I just think me personally, I don't think it's for me because I like to get out there, get my hands dirty, get my hands wet, and just work on something. And I'm not the type of person that works on cars or anything like that, but it's like I love uploading digital content for y'all to watch, and I love just helping fathers overall. And that's the thing about it is that I strive to really help men just all around the world. So when my ex-wife had brought this up about being a stay-at-home father, I just was like, nah, it's just not gonna work. I'd rather just keep working and working and working because working on something. And then, she never made a suggestion about staying home either. So I guess she liked working too. And that's the thing, sometimes people have to come to an agreement in marriage and see if that's right for you. Some people's marriages, it works better for the father to stay at home. And then some people's marriages, the mom might stay at home. But some people just aren't as fortunate because the average families today is it's a two income family, which means the wife is working as well as the father's working too. So a lot of times you have two incomes coming in, and a lot of people just can't afford to be one parent staying at home. But sometimes it is beneficial because the statistics and data do tell us that a lot of times, a lot of the money, it could be a quarter of it or 25% of it or 33%, that money goes towards daycare. So if you go back to the story from the beginning, as I was saying, from Mr. Guzman, you have to look at it and say, hey, maybe he made the right decision. His wife works, he stays at home with the kids, they don't have to spend money on daycare. So I think it just all kind of depends on you just as a person. And one of the things you could look at in this article is that in the Pew Research, 1 in 5 Americans do not work for pay. Our fathers represent this, 1 in 5 in Americans. 63.6% increase from 1989 to 2021. It's an all-time high that we have fathers that are starting to stay at home, and it's starting to increase. And you can just see this with the economy as far as the women just working and getting bachelor's degrees and stuff like that, enlistment, getting bachelor's degrees, and they're just doing sometimes manual labor type of jobs, sometimes some blue collar type of jobs. So the world around us is just changing. And as I was also reading this article, it also talked about the comedian. Her name is Ali Wong. And one of the things is that I thought it was very interesting. I didn't know Ali Wong. So her husband, or soon to be her ex-husband, he's a stay-at-home father. I mean, this guy been a stay-at-home father for probably 10 plus years. And one of the things that she was talking about was people said, does he like your jokes and stuff like that? Because they're kind of raunchy. And she was like, look, my husband is happy because I'm living my dream and he's able to, watch the kids and stuff like that. And he gets to stay at home in the house that I bought. And he's checking his time on the Rolex watch that I bought him. And hey, it seemed to work for a while until, recently, for whatever reason, Ali Wong, she decided, to file for divorce for irreconcilable differences. But the fact of the matter is that, hey, it worked for about 10 plus years and he was able to stay at home. And that's the thing. Every situation is just different. It's just a case by case basis. And as I was also reading this article, one of the things was there was another gentleman, his name was Hector. And one of the things was he owns his own business, but he started to be a stay-at-home dad. This was back in the 90s. And as he would go to other events and stuff like that with his kids, or he'd be in different places talking to fathers or talking to other men, they asked him what he did. And then he started telling about how he was a stay-at-home dad. And he said the conversation just always stopped. Because you got to remember, back in the 90s, that's like unheard of for a father to be a stay-at-home dad. And that's just one of the things, I would say it probably started right around there, like late 80s, 90s is when this started to happen. And now Mr. Hector, he's like a stay-at-home grandfather. So not only did he take care of his kids, but he also now takes care of his grandkids. And I thought that was pretty interesting, giving different perspectives and different point of views and stuff like that. So let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. Y'all can comment and just let me know, would you be a stay-at-home dad or would you be opposed to it? Do you know any stay-at-home dads? And can you share a story? Do you save money on it? Do you not? What things do you like about stay-at-home dads? What things do you not like about stay-at-home dads? So let me know in the comments below. And hey, y'all already know I'm still dropping content. We're trying different things out here. We're going to keep going. So y'all enjoy the rest of y'all's day. Bye.